friend. Welcome back. We are journeying through the letters of John, and today we've arrived to 1 John chapter 4. I'm grateful that you are here. Let's begin by reading, beginning with verse 1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. And every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming, and now is in the world already. Little children, you are from God and have overcome them. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. They are from the world, therefore they speak from the world, and the world listens to them. We are from God. Whoever knows God listens to us. Whoever is not from God does not listen to us. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error. All right, well, just putting this in context and remembering where we left off last week, right? In 1 John chapter 3, John reminded us, look, understand, see, know, understand the Father's great love for us, that he should call us children of God, and understand the love of Jesus Christ, who would lay down his very own life on our behalf. And then John went on to talk about live as children of God, practice righteousness as God is righteous, practice love as Jesus practiced love. And today, what do we find? Today, John circles back to a message that he really hit home in chapter 2. So last week we were knowing God's love, understanding how to live. This chapter is about knowing the Spirit of God. All right. We go from knowing God's love to knowing the Spirit of God. And right off the bat, I bet you noticed them too, these 3 imperative verbs, all right? And we know an imperative verb says, look, you must do this. It's a command, and this is for our safekeeping. This is to keep those who are following after Jesus on the right path. So imperative verbs, always important. The first one is believe, right there in verse 1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit. All right, let's think about what it means to believe in something. My Bible dictionary says this: to trust, to have faith, to put one's trust in something. And right away, it's bringing tears. Right away, that caused me to pause. Like, oh, there are other things other than Jesus, other than the Spirit of God who dwells in us, that we believe, that we can put our faith in, put our trust in. I think there's a good place for application and asking, okay, Carmen, who are you believing, or what are you trusting in? These are false prophets. These are not in any way, shape, or form saviors, all right? All right, so that's it. That was the first imperative command. Do not believe every spirit. Number 2 was test the spirits to see if they are from God. To test means to examine, to check them out, to observe and look over carefully or inspect. All right, so we're to check them out. And I think here, along with that application, is a place for a good old heart check. Right? Check out, what are we believing? What are we trusting? What are we putting our faith in? Test it. Test it. Is that of God? All right. So, beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. Which brings us to the third imperative verb, to know. John says this in verse 2, by this you know the Spirit of God. By this you know every spirit, or you know the Spirit of God. All right, to know here, this knowing is experiential, friends. To know or have knowledge about someone or something, normally as acquired through observation or the senses. And when I read that definition, it took me back to the beginning of John's letter, where he says, look, Jesus manifested himself. We saw him. We heard him. We gazed upon him. We even touched him. So they had acquired experientially knowledge about Jesus. And John is saying this about the Spirit of God. By this you know the Spirit of God. You have lived this out. Okay, so those are imperative verbs, and these help us, these ground us, these show us how we ought to live in the midst of being from God or being from the world, right? John does a beautiful job here of comparing and contrasting those who are from God and those who are of the world. I saw this phrase to be from God or of God, I think 8 times, and then from the world 6 times. So John is doing a really good job of contrasting the difference between the two. And just to be clear, I mean, I think we've already touched on some of these, but just to be clear, if we are from God, those who are from God say or confess, right? We've talked about this word confess. It means to profess publicly. It's what we say about God and about Jesus. We say, if we are from God, we say, Jesus came in the flesh. Jesus took on flesh and blood that he might become that propitiation for our sins, which John talked about back in chapter 1. All right. So obviously, we also believe that Jesus is from God, and we are from God if we profess that Jesus came in the flesh. This too is of the Spirit with a capital S. This is from God's Spirit, Christ's Spirit, that helper, that advocate for us. And this is, we know in the last verse, verse 6, the Spirit of truth. Now contrast all of that with those who are of the world. Those from the world confess, they profess, they announce publicly, oh no, Jesus didn't take on flesh and blood. He did not come in the flesh. He is, these people, these are the false prophets, the Antichrist. They are not from God. And they are speaking with a spirit of error that John refers to once again in that last verse, verse 6. All right, friends, there were some beautiful, beautiful cross references here. Some that come from John chapter 2, or 1 John chapter 2. So we see a similar message as we do in that chapter. But also there were some from Jesus himself, some from Paul. I highlighted a lot in this passage. Half this passage is highlighted. It just feels so important. Do not believe every spirit, but test the Spirit. And by this you know the Spirit. How? Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. That's how we can know that someone is from God. Someone has the Spirit of God dwelling within them. I also highlighted verse number 4. John says this, little children, you are from God and have overcome them. You've overcome these false teachers, these false prophets. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Friends, there's assurance right there. Yes, we have so many voices in our world today. I mean, yeah, it's best not to have on the TV. It's best not to be scrolling through, just scrolling on our phones and computers, because there's so many voices to listen to. And John is saying, look, he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Listen to this voice. Believe, test, know. Listen to this one. He is our helper. He is our advocate. We have the Spirit of Jesus Christ living within us. Oh, friends, cross-reference. That's where I circled around. Let me draw back to these cross-references that were meaningful to me. A couple of them. Romans 8:31. Here's the cross-reference for verse 4. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? Friends, the Spirit is with us, that he is highlighting Jesus Christ. Anyone who is living out loud Jesus Christ, speaking Jesus Christ, is of the Spirit. All right, John 12:31. This is Jesus himself saying, now is the judgment of the world. Now will the ruler of this world be cast out. Friends, he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Oh, take heart. Have courage. It is Jesus that said that. Take heart. Have courage. I have overcome the world. So once again, I think we find just a real message of hope. I feel like this passage is very practical for where we are living, for living in this world. That's what I said in my prayer to the Lord. There are so many voices to listen to, friends. And my prayer is that God's Spirit would help us, help us to turn off the voices of the world that we might believe in, that the Spirit of the living God would help us to test and approve and know his Spirit. All right, a good word for today. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.